Welcome into the first 2023 edition of The Wrap. We took a little bit of a holiday hiatus, but this is Mark Ennis. That's Andy Sweeney from ESPN Louisville. We start, boys, with, the same topic that was at the end of 2022. Really, Louisville men's basketball has not really gotten much better, if at all better. They are 2-14. Showed some fight in the latest two losses, but it's the same recurring problems that we kind of saw in the beginning of the season, and they've only gotten worse or stayed the same throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think Kenny losing is a problem. Obviously, this is not breaking, but Kenny's bigger problem is this whole feeling of there's no movement. You know, you can't ask for patience and say we're trying to build a culture or whatever, however you want to say it, and then have no idea how the game is going to go, flowing out of the game before. And I think there were, even in a loss, good feelings about how they had looked against Syracuse, and then you come right at it and you're down 17 almost before you could blink. It's that nothing seems to carry over, and it is just sort of we'll just show up and see how this one goes. LL's getting a little better, Mike James getting a little better. Front court guys getting a little worse.
Yeah, I mean, what do we do with this? Yeah. I'm asking. I'm sitting over here. Ennis is giving his talk. I'm like, what am I going to say?
We're not even 2 minutes into this segment.
What do you want me to say? Well, I mean, listen, there is a movement that because they're not losing by 30, because they're coming back, because they're taking a punch and they're able to come back multiple times in a game, get a game close. We saw that the other night against Wake Forest. That means something. And for each fan in media gas bag, they're going to have to decide themselves what that means. If that's a big deal, if it's not a big deal, if it's somewhere in the middle. And that's what I'm struggling with, because they're still losing games. It's up to each fan to realize, hey, they come back a couple times during the game. What does that mean? But they're still losing games. The Syracuse game was a game they got to win. I know it's not, it's not the Wake game, but that's a 50-50 game at home. You got to win that game.
Sometimes when we talk about like a spring football game and something good happens, you're like, is the offense good, or does this mean the defense is bad, right? These Louisville basketball games where they fall behind hopelessly in these giant amounts and then make this big comeback, you're like, am I supposed to be encouraged that they kind of almost dug out of it? Or am I supposed to be discouraged that they even had to in the first place? There was really no excuse, I think, for Wake Forest being able to build the lead that they were. And still, even in some of these games where they quote-unquote show fight, NC State or Syracuse or this one, you're showing fight when you've dug yourself a giant hole.
Right.
Let's just either stop digging the giant hole, or how about you fight when you're not behind like that?
I think the sliver of light in all of that is that earlier in the year when they got in the giant hole, it was just over. It was the start of a beatdown. It got worse as the game went on. I'm saying this is a sliver. I'm not giving a ton of credit here, but they did get back into these games. But this is something you and I have talked about, where it's like, which scale do you really want to use? The regular Louisville basketball scale, 2-14, is unheard of. 0-5 in the ACC is unheard of. But then you try to look at it in the context of this team, and is this team getting better? Just block everything else out. I can't really confidently say that. There's a couple guys are, but as a unit, no.
Maybe the only interesting real development out of this game at all is the fact that really for the first time after the game, Kenny kind of went after his own guys a little bit. He has been so protective and so positive and so nurturing and so encouraging and trying to build the confidence and all this stuff. And then finally after the game, he's like, I shouldn't have to be chasing points for Jalen Withers and Brendan Huntley-Hatfield. And that's right.
We're not evaluating wins and losses. Otherwise, Louisville fans would have been very angry the last two games you thought could be winnable games at home. To me, I'm looking at guys who, I know it's a transfer portal era, so nothing is 100%, that I feel like are coming back. Yeah. Because the majority of these guys, when you're selling culture, are not going to be on the team next year. So I look at Lance. He wasn't good the other night, but I look at Mike James, who has been good, who is somebody you feel really good about. Hey, this could be an above-average ACC player. We have something here. I'm looking
that might be it.
Listen, that might be it. I'm bringing two guys to the table who, one's an injured redshirt freshman, one's a freshman.
I'll end the discussion with a few positives. Ellis, I think, has gotten better as a distributor as the year has gone on. He seems like he's listening to that. Mike James, it's good to see a kid rebound from the injury that he had, recover and
He's a good
show.
player.
He looks more explosive than from the beginning
Yeah,
of the year.
he's a good player.
And I think, honestly, for a local kid, I think J.J. Traynor plays hard out of all the front court guys, and that seems to be just a baseline for that group. Is like, who's going to go out there and at least battle to get us back into a game? But needless to say that there's a ton of room, too much room for improvement for that team going on. If you're a Kentucky fan, they are not the very good team people expected them to be, because when they're running up against great opponents, they are just going into a shell. And in this latest game against Alabama was a harsh reminder of that. 5 losses this season, all to good opponents, and you can't find too many positives in it.
Well, I mean, listen, you can go to Kentucky and Indiana. They beat the quad 3 and 4 teams. That's it. Kentucky's big win against LSU, lost over the weekend to Texas. Was it Texas A&M? Yeah. Kentucky's, listen, they're very much, how are they not 50-50 whether they make the tournament? How are they not 50-50? Going into this weekend, they were on the 9 seed line. And they go and they get smoked, and they get more than smoked. They get embarrassed. And John Calipari, much like Kenny Payne at times, has been positive with this team.
Yeah, weirdly.
Almost, hey, let's go out there and play. Even though the end of the LSU game left a lot to be desired. Louisville, I mean, that was an okay performance by Kentucky. Louisville, was a terrible defensive team. Cal has been trying to, I don't know about baby this team, but massage ego. Jacob Toppin was in a rough spot, trying to get everyone rallying the troops, and they go and they get smoked. And Cal, after the game, is sad. It is not ridiculous to ask today and to seriously wonder if Kentucky is an NCAA tournament team.
Win.
No, and you can add to it, like, this is the worst one of them all, because all of the tropes that have kind of emerged about Cal lately, about like this is a prehistoric offense and style of play, his kind of stubborn refusal to embrace three-point shooting the way just about everybody else has in one way or another. Nate Oates is all of that in the flesh.
Yep.
And dog walks them. And after the game is like, on film, we thought Oscar Tshiebwe kind of stinks defending pick and roll, and we just went right at him. And it was like so obvious that Nate Oates had found a weakness, and Cal had no idea what to do other than sit him down. And your National Player of the Year can't be getting sat down because you are not better at scheming better.
It's alarming.
I mean,
Oscar, Toppin, Kaysen, none of them showed up on offense. And when you shorten your roster, which you should, to 6-7 guys or so, you end up with Antonio Reeves shooting a bunch of, jumpers from deep.
And the biggest thing, I think Kyle Tucker kind of said this in The Athletic. First 5-6 years Cal was here, you took the floor down 5, down 6, down 7. Like they were intimidating. He was intimidating. The players were intimidating. The environment was intimidating. And now, like, Alabama couldn't wait for
it's sad. Yeah, it's sad. Alabama had better players, was better coach, had better players.
And knew it.
Knows who they are.
I don't think Alabama even acted like they had done like a huge thing. I think they felt like, this is what we thought we were going to do. And it's a new low for him. It's territory we've never seen him in.
And I don't think there's an immediate fix right now either. When you look at the roster itself, or everybody talks about a schematic change or something, you have to keep in mind that this roster was built and constructed in the way that John wants to play. So I don't think there's some overhaul that can be made. Like, this is what it is. And I guess that's the question I ask is, what is the fix for this team?
Well, this is the problem. We were talking about this before. There is no pivot. I mean, he even did he replaced, Lucas went to Duke, so he had a system, but he brought in Orlando, Antigua, and Chin Coleman. Chin Coleman, I believe, got a raise here. This past offseason, you mentioned KT Turner. I mean, they've already done the assistant pivot, right? I mean, the only pivot is next year, you would hope you would have more of the high-end talent. And this year you have college talent, but you only have 1 or 2 guys that are that NBA talent. And I'm saying that, and I don't believe in it. The pivot would be that the freshmen coming in can transcend everything the way that Cal's early teams did. But are you guys buying that? No. Are Kentucky fans buying that? Absolutely not.
And I think the 2 big problems for Cal. One, he did kind of what Urban Meyer used to do in the SEC and the Big Ten, both kind of forces everybody else to get better. Auburn is a lot better. Tennessee's a lot better. Arkansas's a lot better. Alabama's a lot better. Like, it's a lot harder league than the one that he walked into when they were just light years ahead of everybody else. And he has a stubborn refusal to just acknowledge the fact that players are growing up and playing in systems for years now that are used to pace and space, and it just kind of dog walks his sort of thing that relies on simplicity and kind of old school getting to the rim and all this sort of stuff. Teams just shoot it over him now.
Your program is handcuffed to him. Mitch Barnhart has given 2 contracts that he did not have to give. And because of that, I don't know if there's much of a conversation to be had when we talk about the future of Calipari when he has the contract that he has.
Louisville fans probably can take Cincinnati and change them from a rival to like bless them for rescuing them from a crummy situation. And if I'm a Kentucky fan, look, Cal's earned however long he's going to get or whatever. But deep down, you might kind of be hoping that Texas will do you a solid here and Satterfield you, and rescue you from a mess of your own making.
What a verb, Satterfielding you. That's amazing. What a great transition to go on.
This is a good transition.
Louisville football is on an absolute heater in recruiting. Jeff Brom comes in and they have hit the transfer portal hard. First it was the front 7 additions. Now they're kind of working their way to the offensive side of the ball. 2 huge wide receiver pickups in Kevin Coleman, Jamari Thrash. How impressed have you guys been with the job Jeff Brom and this staff have done in hitting the recruiting trail hard?
It really feels like from the moment he was hired, like this was a guy who had a plan. Almost like he coached all year this year at Purdue. Like, if I get my shot at this is what I'm going to do. Like, it's just sort of been like, hey, we're putting the band back together. It's been a total overhaul at wide receiver, which was needed. It's hard to overstate, I think, the value of bringing in a quarterback who already knows everything about this offense. Every single player's rep is going to be better because the quarterback already knows what they're supposed to be doing. He is hitting the ground running. And this is not trolling in any way. Like we kind of thought Kenny Payne would do, where like guys immediately start coming in. Yeah, I want to play for that. I want to play for that.
The hype was real.
And
I mean, it is. It's been backed immediately by results.
I was surprised by the defensive guys, and then not surprised by the offensive guys. But it's hard to not be excited about what the upgrades there and his track record with quarterbacks and wide receivers. I mean, I think Louisville fans are right to be excited.
Here's what's refreshing. What's refreshing to me is you go get Jeff Brom. You know he's an offensive guy, so he goes out and is in the midst of remaking that offense. The wide receivers, goes out and gets his quarterback, keeps Pierce Clarkson and others, but especially Pierce, in the fold through all of this. Not to totally pick on him, I say that, but to pick on him would be Scott Satterfield. He was the offensive guy, and you didn't want him running the plays.
Yeah.
He was the offensive guy and never could get a quarterback. He was the offensive guy, and not having this level of success in the transfer portal. Jeff Brom is the offensive guy and is already kind of putting those pieces together in a couple places. You mentioned wide receiver that they absolutely had to.
And we only really talked about the portal, but what was key for me, anytime you see a coaching change, you immediately think, what guys in the recruiting class for, we'll just say 2023 here, are going to stay with Louisville through all this? They lost a couple, but they keep Jamari Johnson, which was a huge get for them. And then you move ahead to 2024, and they get the highest rated commit ever in TJ Capers, a 5-star edge linebacker from Florida. It seems like the recruiting momentum that we saw pick up last year under Scott stayed, even when Satterfield and the assistants that he had left. And I think that's a pretty loud statement for Louisville football.
It felt like last year with NIL and whatever else was sort of involved in Louisville taking this leap in recruiting, that it didn't really seem to have a whole lot to do with Scott. And that you were almost doing it around him. And I think that the proof's in the pudding. These kids didn't go with him at all.
A couple guys go with him.
The highest profile guys, right?
A couple guys go with him, and that's it.
But with Jeff, you immediately turn around like, couple of pretty highly rated defensive linemen, a running back, like immediately, those guys all flip with him as well. And Jeff, it just sort of seems like a guy who was like, wants to maximize this. Like Louisville fans have really just dreamed of somebody. We either have somebody that's embarrassing but kind of an amazing mad scientist, or somebody who can't wait to get out of here but is great, or somebody who's no good and we'll never be able to get rid of him. And you finally have got a guy that seems like he's kind of all the things you've wanted and wants to be here.
It's a different avenue than kind of the others have been. Well, I know we've been off a few weeks. I think both schools Louisville keeping the majority of what they were able to do, including over the weekend, including Pierce hitting the portal hard, Kentucky finishing strong on their class high school, getting their quarterback, getting their running back, getting J.J. Weaver, getting a left tackle. I think for where these schools are, I think they both did a fine job, and they're going to finish pretty close to each other probably in some of these rankings.
And Stoops, presumably, getting Cohen to come back and be the offensive coordinator. Yeah, I think if you had told Kentucky fans that we're going to get Devin Leary and Cohen's going to come back, and those wide receivers, I think they're going to be thrilled.
I think both schools, it's kind of odd. Like, I just kind of feel like they're in different spots. Stoops has been here for so long. Yeah. Jeff Brom is very new and is kind of remaking and giving energy. Totally. But both places have done a pretty solid job here the last
You
few
flip
weeks.
the roles of like basketball season, nobody's happy, and the football off season, everybody's happy in Lexington and Louisville. But you mentioned Kentucky. Obviously, they have to go through a whole offensive makeover this off season, and I don't think they could have done much better in getting Devin Leary a quarterback. But when you look at what they have added, what really stands out?
I mean, to me, it's that right there. They got an offensive lineman. Yeah, if Cohen comes in, you hope you get 2 years from him. I mean, what you need from Cohen is not only a couple years, you got to get, listen, I love the transfer portal. You got to get a high school quarterback at some point that you can bring along that is a legit option.
You can't have this fallback.
Oh, I mean, the guys they have brought in have just been guys that you know are not going to be able to play at a high level in the SEC. Listen, Kentucky fans, they love themselves some Liam Cohen. More than anyone else, Liam Cohen has a home in Lexington if he wants it. Running back, quarterback, OC, left tackle, it's what you wanted if you're a Kentucky fan.
They'll be here throughout the rest of the season. We'll bring in Chrissy Banta and Alexis Cubit now to break down some Louisville women's basketball. Guys, this team has been, it's kind of a tough one to figure out compared to recent years. Louisville stands at 13-5, 4-1 in ACC play. They're coming off of 2 tough wins against Georgia Tech and Pitt, who I think we could all agree are not the top of the heap in a tough ACC this year. Just what's been your overall impressions of this team since we had to take a while off due to the holiday?
I think the biggest thing is just trying to figure out what works. I mean, Jeff's talked about it, Haley's talked about it, trying to find lineups where they're all clicking together, they're gelling, and I just don't know that they found that quite yet. I mean, they've gone with the same starters for several games with Haley, Cece, Morgan, Liz, and Olivia, and they're able to at least get them going, but then when it comes to having that spark, you know, midway through that first quarter, it just doesn't seem like this group has that yet. So I think the thing moving forward that they're still trying to figure out is who plays the best together, who can get the most out of each other. We're just talking about last year's team and how they clicked. You know, this group doesn't seem to quite have that yet, but I think once they do, I mean, they have the talent to still, you know, win the ACC. I mean, we've seen how it's gone so far this season, so it's anybody's conference right now.
We see a lot of Jeff Walls moving around lineups early in the season, year in and year out. And typically by this point, he's found the lineups that work best for him against certain matchups. And we're still at a point where we don't necessarily know which lineups match up best with certain teams. And that's a little risky in a league like the ACC this year when we're looking at sending 8 or 9 to the tournament. So hopefully that's something they can figure out soon. And on top of the chemistry issues, the turnover issues have been a huge problem this year and a huge factor.
And I think Mikasa Robinson coming back from her injury should help that issue out. But we talked about the chemistry in that group last year having it. You saw Emily Angsler and Chelsea Hall, newcomers to the program. I think they just immediately got it. Kiana Smith was a transfer, but she had been in the program for a bit. I don't think we've seen that light bulb fully go off yet for Cece Carr, Morgan Jones, and Josie Williams. I'd give Carr a little bit more leeway on that because she is scoring the ball very well.
Yeah.
I think she's figuring that out. Morgan Jones is an interesting case because I think coming into the season, we would be like, okay, if Haley Van Lith doesn't have the scoring touch one night, it's probably going to be a night for Morgan Jones to really take over.
Yeah.
But it's not just at the offensive end of the floor, it's at the defensive end of the floor. I don't think the light bulb's fully gone off for her yet this season.
Yeah, no, and I will say this. I'm going to put my take out there. I think Morgan is probably one of the most naturally talented players on this team. I mean, when she's on, she's on. I mean, she's, you know, like you said, at the defensive end, she's doing things well. She's able to draw fouls, you know, get those rebounds. But it's just a matter of stacking those consistent performances together, not just having a period of 5 minutes, you know, having, you know, a full quarter, then a full half, then 2 full halves, then a full game. And I just don't think we're seeing that right now from her. But once, you know, whatever it is that can allow her to be a little more consistent and to play at her best level, because Louisville knows, you know, what she can do.
But better than anybody. Yeah.
Right, when she's at her best. And then, like you said, obviously Cece is scoring the ball. I like what I'm seeing from her in terms of her being able to not just score. I mean, she's lethal from 3. But, you know, just being that floor general.
Josie's one who I really expected a bigger impact from earlier on because she was so good at her previous school, and I thought she would fit into this program a little more than she has so far, and I think she still has the potential to really find her space and find herself and who she is to this program.
Virginia Tech's a huge matchup coming up. They've been ranked in the top 10 for most of the season. They have the reigning player of the year in Elizabeth Kitley. What needs to take a step forward more than anything for Louisville to get arguably the biggest win of the season in beating Virginia Tech? What needs to happen for them to take another step and get that win?
I mean, I think you mentioned, adjusting to just the level of play. I think the other thing that maybe goes underestimated by outside people, but definitely not those inside, is the culture. I think that's one of the biggest things that, a lot of the newcomers have to adjust to. We talk about this all the time. Louisville teams are gritty, they're tough, they're competitive, they're not going to back down. They just honored that 2012-13 team. Those young women were tough. They were not scared of Brittany Griner. They were not scared of Odyssey Sims. They were not scared of that 40-0 season before. They were like, records are clean. We're going to come in and we're going to beat you. There's a lot that this current group can take from that group in terms of, okay, yes, we have, a Final Four last year. We have, all of the things. But this is a new year. This is our team. Technically, yes, they are the hunted because they were picked to win the conference, but they can't have that mentality. They have to come in and be like, okay, we're going to dominate from the minute this game tips off. And I think maybe some of the players are still adjusting to that kind of killer instinct.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we see it in players like Haley Van Lith,
yes,
who has always had that killer instinct since the day she stepped on campus.
I think she was just bored with that.
She absolutely was bored with that. That is just in her, it's in her blood. But then you have other players who kind of have to dig for that killer instinct, and sometimes it holds them back on the court. So hopefully they're able to dig a little bit deeper, pull it out, keep it out consistently, and go forward in the ACC and give people a reason to know why they're the hunted team.
Haley's playing great basketball. I mean, she's scoring
basketball.
almost 20 points every night. That three ball wasn't falling for her for a few games. It definitely came back strongly in this latest game. So I think you can count on it. You know what you're going to get. Olivia Cochran, I think that's another one. You know that you're going to get the effort night in, night out. Nyla Harris, though, is like a wild card to me in all of this. You could tell when a coach likes somebody sometimes with like subtle things that they'll say. Jeff Walz is not subtle at all about Nyla
It never
Harris.
has been. Well, he's not subtle about anybody.
No, that's very true. Yes, but Nyla Harris in particular is coming in and making the most of her minutes this season with her effort. She's finishing well around the rim. I remember Van Lith saying recently that, like, look, we'll take her freshman mistakes because we know what we're going to get out of Nyla Harris night in and night out.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm just excited to see her growth and her progression, because if you think this is what she's doing, as a freshman with only, 16, however many games under her belt, can you imagine what she's going to look like, this time next year or 2 years from now? And I think it's just a matter of, again, that grittiness. Like, she has it.
I see a lot of Haley in Nyla. And when I say that, what I mean is we knew when Haley was a freshman what we were getting out of Haley night in and night out, and she's only improved since then. And I think you're going to see a lot of the same with Nyla. We accepted Haley's freshman mistakes, even though she would go out there and score 20 as a freshman. I think you're going to start to see that with Nyla, and I think over the next couple of years, you're going to really see her killer instinct and her grittiness come out in her play, and she's going to be one of those players that we can count on night in and night out because we know we're going to get a 20-point game from her.
I was about to say, she's getting a lot of the dirty work done right now in a lot of the stats that maybe necessarily don't show up, but the ones that do show up, she's a heck of a rebounder.
Yeah.
And rebounding is something that is almost an innate instinct or ability that a player just has. They can get better at it, but the great ones just have it. She's showing that early as a freshman, and I'm very intrigued to see, do her minutes even start increasing a little bit more as the season goes along?
I would be surprised if they didn't.
That would be a huge development.
And back to what you said about the stats that don't show up, you see a lot of that with Mikasa on the court. I mean, exactly, yeah.
Yes.
And I think that maybe some of Mikasa's leadership is starting to rub off on Nyla and show her it's not all about your stat line.
No.
If you can put forth these defensive efforts on the court, you're still going to have a significant impact on this team.
For now, this is Alexis Cubit from the Courier-Journal. That's Chrissy Banta from ESPN Louisville. I'm Todd Greever. Thanks for watching another edition of The Wrap.